Now, Andrew, you are part of Noah's Ark scans, and you've been getting a lot of press right now because Noah's Ark is always one of those things that people for years have wanted to prove and find evidence of, and you're doing a lot of work in this area. Before we get into that work, where did your interest in Noah's Ark stem from?
Well, actually, as a child, a guy named Wyatt came out to California and did a presentation. And I was in middle school back in the early 90s, and I heard about it. I decided I had to go there when I got a chance. And so in college in 1997, that was my first trip to see this boat formation in Turkey. And I've been going back and forth ever since.
Now, talk a little bit about Noah's Ark scans, who you guys are, how you formed, and what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, our goal, it's basically just a loose organization of individuals interested in pursuing scientific work and promoting this site. And so basically anyone who contacts us and wants to help out, for example, this last year, we had an Australian soil scientist come out there and he suggested a soil test that we could do because we noticed, for example, that the grass growing in this boat formation was a different color than right outside the boat object. And so him and the local Turkish geologist designed a test, and they got the samples, and we got some really interesting results.
So I want to dig into that a little bit more. But one of the things, so people who are critics or they don't believe or they're not, even if they do believe and Noah's Ark, they're not really sure. They'll
Yep.
say, well, what has taken so long? We've known about this spot, we've seen this formation. Why have we just not gone in and looked to see if it's there? How do you respond to them to help them understand maybe the complexities of what is at play here?
Yeah, believe me, we are just as interested as anyone else in either proving or disproving what this site is. And so it has there's many factors involved. Some are politics. So this is Eastern Turkey. So you do have issues out there that could affect doing scientific work. Then you have religious issues. Some people claim this is the Christian site, and then there's a Islamic site further down south called Mount Judy in Turkey. So you do have that type of competition, but we do have local Turkish professors who are interested in this site and who have done work, especially the geologists we work with. But yeah, all of those combined, and then plus the lack of interest, because if you're going to pursue a scientific investigation of this site, you have to work with the local university, which means you need to find a university and professors who are willing to put their career on the line looking for Noah's Ark, which, even for Islamic scholars, that could be a problem. People think you're crazy looking for something like this. And so, yeah, it's very difficult. So we just grind away at it and try to get the interest involved, of course, with the local authorities and then with international partners.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the site itself. The site where this is near Mount Ararat. That site, does this line up from what you're seeing, if this is truly where Noah's Ark is, with what we see in Scripture, what we're told in Genesis?
Yeah, so Genesis, which I do believe Moses wrote, has a very brief description as to the landing of Noah's Ark. Moses didn't use GPS, and so when he wrote to where he believed Noah's Ark landed, and where I believe God told him, all he said was the mountains of Ararat, or the mountains of Ur-Artu, which was an ancient kingdom. So that'd be like me saying today Noah's Ark landed in the mountains of Colorado or the mountains of Canada. It's a general area. So Ur-Artu was a mountainous kingdom. Its heyday was during the Iron Age, so 800 BC or so, or the 8th century BC, I should say. But it started much earlier, and so it's not exact peak. So this site, though, is in the area or the region of this mountainous kingdom. All around it, we find Ur-Artu settlements and castles and the valley floor. A couple peaks over, there's a castle, and then the capital is about 2 hours south of our site around Lake Vaughan.
So, okay, this site right now, talk a little bit about what you were mentioning this before, but let's go a little deeper on this. What has been found? What are signs so far in the testing of this site that you believe might point to the fact that this could be the location of Noah's Ark?
Yeah, so it always comes down to, well, first when it was discovered, it was because of the shape. Here was this boat formation in the mountains, and that got the Turkish army interested. There was an army captain, Captain Duropinar, who discovered it on September 11, 1959. And then worldwide press picked up on October that year. And then an American expedition actually came out here in June of the next year in 1960, and it was written up in the like Life magazine. But then it was kind of forgotten about. And then an American explorer and adventurer, Ron Wyatt from Tennessee, he picked up and was promoting it through the 80s and 90s until he passed away. And then more recently, we have been involved in it. And some of the key pieces of evidence, number one, we have a ship shape. Some will say, well, the ark had to be a box or a rectangle. But if you look at like Ark Encounter in Kentucky, the replica, they have really good explanations as to why the Hebrew word doesn't give you the shape of the boat. It just tells you the capacity with the dimensions, like the 300 cubits long, which, by the way, this site is 300 Royal Egyptian cubits long. So we have the shape, we have the location matching, we have the length matching exactly in the Bible. And so then it comes down to, well, what could the shape be if it's not Noah's Ark? If it's just like a random rubble of dirt and rock, then testing should show that. And so right now, the only tests that we can do are non-destructive type of tests, like geophysical scans. So that would include GPR, which is radar, ground penetrating radar, ERT, which uses electricity and measures the resistive nature, what's below the ground, and then the software can make models to peer below the soil, just like the radar does. And then like chemical testing. And so our next step would be core drilling, this, to ground truth what we're seeing on the radar and ERT scans. But we believe, based on these scans so far, it's showing that there's a pattern of angular structures. We're even seeing a central tunnel going down the middle of the boat to a central void. And so this is stuff being discovered by geophysicists that have nothing to do with our project. We just give them our raw data and say, hey, tell us what you see in this. And they're coming back with these interesting results that so far is showing that this is a unique object sitting on the side of the mountain.
Yeah. So that was going to be my question, because people will say, okay, well, you're a Christian, and if you believe these things, are scientists involved, right? And it sounds like what you've said throughout this conversation, in order to even look at this area, you have to have a university involved. You have to have people. I would imagine there are people looking at this who may not even believe in Noah's Ark, but who are saying there's a shape there. There's something there. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that is correct. You just can't go out there and, I'm a layperson, even though I'm heavily involved in the work. So I just call myself an independent researcher. I'm not an archaeologist or geologist, but we bring in these people, say, hey, what do you think of this? Do the test. Let's talk about it. And so that's what we're doing and have been doing. And so the main person that we worked with in the past has been Dr. Salih Borak Tutan. He's a retired geologist, associate professor of geology from Ataturk University. And he's been studying this site in the region since the 80s. And so for me, I consider him the expert for the geology of this site. And I've asked him the questions of what the critics will say, like, oh, it's a natural formation because of this, this, and this. And he has really shown me from the geology, like, no, it can't be this, this, and this. And nothing so far has disproved the theory that this is a man-made object. Obviously, we'd love to excavate, but, one step at a time.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about that, because I know you put out a statement on your website about the excavation. There were questions about that. Are you guys going to do that this year? Again, and you already spoke to it again, but let's speak to it again. What is delaying that excavation, and when do you think it would be possible that you could actually move in that direction of being able to do that?
So when we talk to the scientists and the universities, the key thing they would like to do is as much as possible non-destructive techniques to study the site, because archaeology is a destructive science. What you dig and pull out of a site, you can't really put back. And so with advancements in chemistry and with geophysical surveys and other techniques, you can do a lot to understand the site without having to destroy it and dig a big hole. Now, we would love to see what's deep down in the site, but there are other techniques we are wanting to use that won't destroy the ship shape, and that would be like core drilling. And so we're hoping that before any excavations are even considered, that we could core drill the site at random locations and at some of these spots that the radar is showing to be like an angular structure that possibly won't be considered natural, so maybe man-made, like walls. And some of these voids, this tunnel that's going down the middle, about 4 meters down, the geophysicist who found it, she said, this is big enough that someone could crouch and walk through it. So there's things down there that are not filled in yet that we'd like to stick a camera in, and just to get some of the samples back from below the ground to really see what's going on below the surface.
How convinced are you that this is Noah's Ark?
Well, number one, I don't think we'll ever find a plaque that said made by Noah and Sons. So it comes down to circumstantial evidence, the location. If it's man-made, then what is it? Is it a ship-shaped building, a barn? What is it? And I think with all of the data pointing to this being a ship in the mountains of Ararat, I'm positive that this has to be the remains, the decayed, buried remains of Noah's Ark. And so we're not going to expect something that's fully preserved like some of the stories we've heard in the past. I think it's going to be like any other ship you see, Viking burial ships, Roman or Greek ships that archaeologists excavate. What's left is the chemical imprint, pieces of wood maybe in the ground, the shape of the hull. These are the things you'll find in the soil. So for me, I do believe that this is the best candidate until someone else, shows me another site.
So what is next for Noah's Ark scans in this project?
Well, we'd like to do a larger soil testing. That would be great because we did get 22 samples and we haven't published them yet because we would like to bring in more samples from the mountainside to compare with inside the ship. And then number two, what I mentioned before, we really are pushing for core drilling, which has not been done, a complete core drilling survey. And then the other thing would be a more complete GPR. All the GPR efforts have been to survey only inside the boat. We would like to compare it to the mudslide around it. And the best way to do that, because of the rough terrain on this mountainside, is to do a drone-based GPR, something that could fly over the terrain. And so we can then compare what's inside the ship versus what's on the outside of the formation. And so these are some of the next goals of ours. Hopefully we can get some of this done this summer.
Oh, wow. So as soon as this summer, well, where can people go to follow the journey that Noah's Ark Scans is on?
You can go to our website, noahsarkscans.com. We also have a YouTube channel, but it's under my the journal kind of like media that I run for even looking for Sinai in Arabia, whatever. So it's called Discovered Media on YouTube, Discovered Media. And that has a lot of our videos and shorts and more updates. But the website itself has all the documents, for and against, whether it's on Ararat or our site. We publish, whatever's out there so people can read up on all the different reports that have been generated about this site.
Well, I so appreciate you taking the time, and we'll definitely be having you back to continue sharing with us as the journey unfolds.
Thank you. I'm glad to share.